On this episode, I welcome David Istier, the founder of Gutsy Organic. David is an entrepreneur from France, living in the US, and trying to build a brand that is built to last. He has experienced many highs and lows and can share some great stories and lessons from his journey. He is a longtime Circle Media client and a friend, and I think you will be a fan of both him and his brand. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Adam. I'm a big fan, so I'm very excited to be here today.
I appreciate it. I will pay you for saying that you are a big fan. So before we get into anything, I like for people to know, what is Gutsy? Why does it exist?
So, long story, but to start, we are a company about the gut. And when we talk about the gut, for us, we believe that the gut is at the center of our body for a reason, because it acts as the command center. Not just for health per se, but also for cognition. A lot of people discuss now, there's more and more research coming around the discussion about the link between the gut and the brain and emotions and so on. So our business, in short, is about providing organic, plant-based, gut-healthy snacks, but it's also about living a gutsy life.
Got it. And talk to me a little bit about the product. So your delivery mechanism in the pouch format. Tell me how you got there, why that came about, a little bit about the actual product.
So the product is in a pouch. I have a background, obviously, in the pouch, as I launched for a French company the first fruit squeezers in a pouch in America for kids, very famous now, called Go-Go Squeeze. And, you know, I had a first seat, if you will, in terms of how that resonated with US consumers. And many parents were like, well, it's a shame there's nothing for us adults. So the first venture, actually, before Gutsy, we had a first strike, as you will say, as a business. It was a brand called Energy Fruit, and it was in a pouch as well for adults. And the goal was to kind of become the vitamin water of fruit snacking with fruit and vitamins. So that didn't go very well for many reasons. I think that when we started, it was about 8 years ago. On this journey, folks were not really looking for a pouch that was with vitamins, and that's about it. So they were looking for more. And through that journey, it was very tough because obviously I had friends and family involved in the process, and so on. Didn't pay myself for many years, and I got kind of very stressed out thinking about letting people down, and and I even had to take a job in the deli in my building to pay my rent for a bit. And at that point, I got very stressed and sick, physically sick, and I started having rashes on my body and just falling apart, pretty much. So that kind of journey led me to go to see a Chinese herbalist and start. So I got some herbal concoction to kind of like heal myself, and I saw the impact that the teas had on me, and also I started reading about plant-based healing a lot more, and that's when I stumbled upon prebiotics, which are a main component of the gut health angle in our products. And we can talk a bit more about that later, if you will. But it really came at the lowest point in my life is when Gutsy was born, really. And I thought, if I go through this journey of stress and sickness like that, and I can heal myself with plants, that means that I might not be the only one facing that. So there must be a need for that, and that's how we kind of pivoted the business and moved from a semi-functional product to a gut-healthy, organic, plant-based snack like Gutsy.
Got it. That's an interesting story. I didn't know that whole story. And you had, let me just recap this, make sure I have an understanding. You worked at Go-Go Squeeze, sort of leader in the pouch space. I know my kids used to eat that all the time, and got some investment from family members and people close to you, and went out and worked on that business. And that business ultimately, as originally planned, did not work out, which led to a very low point in your life. Mm-hmm. Rashes on your body, a lot of stress, literally working in a deli in your building to make ends meet, real low point. and Chinese herbal medicine and just like advice led you to understanding about prebiotics, probiotics, things like that for gut health. And that has led to Gutsy. So that wasn't necessarily just like this clean pivot where you were like, eureka moment, pivot. You know, you read about all these books, like we learned this and we pivoted and then we did this. And it sounds like this like very linear thing. How long was that? Like, so how long between going low and then rebounding and bringing the second brand to life?
Took probably about, I would say, 6 to 8 months at least.
Okay.
And during that time, when I went back to investors, and because I was like, the energy food business, I don't think it's gonna work out. And people were like, "Wow, you got to find a way to make it work, right?" And I was like, "I think if we carry on like this, and we're gonna end up against the wall, and this business is gonna be toast, And so so between that time and trying, it's like, well, what do? You stop, right? Or you find a way to because I really believe deep down in me that the patch format for adults, with plant-based product in it, there was something to do with it. The question was, well, was that going to be sufficient enough? And so, the incident of kind of like really kind of pushing myself too hard and becoming sick was really the aha moment when I healed myself. That, well, maybe that's what we're missing here, actually, in the process. So by the time I started talking about this idea of prebiotics and gut health and so on, it was like, well, how are we going to go about doing this? And also, we didn't sell any product. We stopped basically the business for 6 months.
Did you have inventory that you were sitting on?
So we sold a little bit of inventory we had in the marketplace. We also had a few retailers that we were dealing with, which was a bit difficult to say, well, we're not going to be able to sell you guys anymore. Like I think we had like Albertson in Idaho, for example, that gave us a gamble and said, okay. And I had to go back and tell them, well, actually, sorry guys, but we can give you product anymore.
I gotta know. And so what happens in that conversation? You get a buyer to buy, which is hard enough. Then you went back to that conversation. How did they respond to that?
Well, people kind of understand, and I think, especially even more so now, bigger retailers, they work with. At the time, they were not working so much with smaller brands or startup. Now it's a bit different, but so they understood, But then it's like they don't forget either, So the second time around, when you come back, it's like, okay, interesting, maybe not.
And do they give you a hard time? Not them specifically. I don't want to maybe individually call anyone out, but does the buyer let you know, like, hey, like, do they lay into you, or do they sort of give you a clean slate?
Not really. I think it's more the brokers, because we work with brokers, because the country is so big. So you need like an outside sales team to help you out, because those folks are always with the retailers. Yeah. And the brokers were a bit tougher about it for us, but we had no choice.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so you had that inventory, you had to pull back on some retailers, and there were 6 to 8 months of complete shutdown.
Like basically, we stopped the company for 6 months.
Done.
And it didn't go super well with investors. I think friends and families were obviously supportive, and but like the family office we invested they were kind of like, oh, this is not great. And at that point, it's like, okay, we're gonna go and pivot on this new idea. We're really excited about it. How do we go about doing it? Because then you need to find a manufacturer that can deliver the product for you, and also you need to find more money, right? And so at that stage, when you kind of screwed up the first venture, you're thinking, how am I gonna get money moving forward, right? So that was an interesting process, really, at that stage.
And so you're saying you went back to some of the original people, like close to you. They weren't in the mood to replenish the well.
Well, I think that when you talk to friends and family, they already put some of their savings in it. Yeah, so it's like for them to double down, it's very hard,
very
right?
Hard. Okay.
So then you need you need some money. I mean, the food industry, if you're gonna make product, you need to make a certain amount of product. So you need working capital, just that, to make the product, right? And then after that, you have to invest in people, you got to invest in brokers, you got to invest in marketing and all those things. And it's not cheap.
No, I get it. I get it. Here's what I'm always curious about, actually, and maybe you can answer this for me. I feel like everyone, it's a cute thing to like go on LinkedIn or say, listen, here's how to do well in the CPG business. Raise money and then raise twice as much as you thought you were going to need, because that's what you're going to need to succeed. And then everyone chimes in. How do you do that though? If you have to go out and say, I need X, and here's how I'm going to use X. People want to see like, how are you going to do and what's your plan? But then you really need 2 times X. So how do you go about managing that where you're sort of like getting more runway than you need, but not taking on too much or giving up too much in the beginning? Like, what was your sense, especially going the second time around? Were you more cautious? Were you more calculated? Like, how did that impact your decision making as you went back to try a second venture?
I think, so ideally, you want to raise quite a bit of cash, and we all try to kind of push it as far as possible, because the earlier you raise that capital, the more diluted, because the valuation is lower, and you end up giving a lot more of your business, right? But when you look at folks initially, and now it's changed a lot, like 7-8 years ago, like raising capital was still at its kind of infancy in the food industry and the natural food industry, compared to today. I mean, today you look at the raise that companies are doing, it's just insane. Like, they are raising 10, 20, 30, 50 million, just like that. You will think just like that. But when you're a small business like us, you don't just say, hey, I'm just going to get a big check. It comes in increments, right? So you need the first 100, 200K, and then that kind of lead to more, right, along the way. And it's a bit of a curse if you really want to get beyond your business, because raising capital takes time, and you got to go back again in the next 6 months or whatever. So it's tough, but at the same time, it's a blessing, because I think initially when you're so young, you learn to treat money with more respect, in terms of, okay, I have $1 to spend, where am I gonna spend it, right? So in that respect, it's I think it helped us, especially with the first venture, because we didn't burn millions of dollars. Although it was a failure, we didn't kind of just like put $2 million to the trash, right? So, it's a mixed bag. There's no real kind of like, okay, this is how you go about doing it, especially when you're at this seed stage of pre-money, like pre-revenue, to even now. It's before it were people were saying, you need to have a million run rate before I put my money in it. Now that run rate is 3, 4, 5 million, right? Because the risk when you look at 0 to 5 million of failure is extremely high, and the amount of work that it takes is insane, right? So for us, like the second time around, raising money actually came in a different way, because it was obviously not friends and family at that point, but it was people in the food industry that were in my network, and that kind of like kept an eye on what I was doing, and also I was not crumbling fully after the first product and so on. And so at that point, I kind of like activated my network in people that were already in the food industry, and that also did it properly as entrepreneurs on a bigger scale. And that really kind of was the core kind of like time when we moved, right? We had people that were like, before, I didn't really think that the first idea was unique and big enough to be relevant for US consumers. Now, first you failed, and you've learned, and you've been humbled by the journey, and you're applying the learnings of what happened to you, and also the new purpose and the functionality of gut health, plant-based, organic, that I can relate. So I'm gonna back you up potentially on that one. And even then, at that point, it was a few increments with the new ID too.
Right. From the same investors?
from the same investors. Yeah.
So do you think a lot of them actually, did you ever go to any of them and not tell them the V1 story and just go right into this and as if this was your first foray?
No, because you can't do that, because I think, it's a small industry, first of all. And second of all, you know, you can keep secret like this
Well, it's
forever, right?
not about secret or lying. It's more like
It's not
you're
about omitting
conveniently leave that out,
potentially.
right? So everyone knew that you already did a V1 and this was your new go.
No, and for me, it's part of my personality, and it can be seen as a negative maybe sometimes. I'm very honest, and that's part of my French heritage of saying it as it is. And sometimes it can come across like either arrogant, or it can come across as negative, right? So no, I kind of put it on the table, and it's like, and also when you're like that, it attracts the right folks, right? Because if you're trying to kind of lure people in thinking that, you know, of it's going to be a big success, and I did go squeeze before, and look at how big it is now, and you don't talk about the stuff in between, then it's just, you're missing part of the experience in the story, right?
I buy that. That makes sense. Do you think that when you did get that first investment, what was the main reason? Was it that you had a great product? Was it that you had a great network? Was it that you were a convincing salesman? What would you say is the number one reason you got a raise on the second venture as the first check-in?
You're asking about the second venture?
Yep.
Look, I think it's about, when you pivot, you have to, it's all about the story, right? And you have to, the story there was, look, guys, I was successful in doing stuff before in the food industry in England and also in the US. And I went on my own and didn't work out, right? But I've learned a lot. And I think that the amount of learnings that we got and what happened personally to me makes the next journey very powerful in a way we can go about doing something special and unique. Because, when you think about the prebiotic and the gut health angle, we were one of the first, if not the first company to take the prebiotics and the gut health discussion from a supplement space into a mainstream space, right? So that was exciting as well.
Yeah, I mean, you've been with me for a long time, so you sort of educated me on that space, to be honest with you. And now, we had the Olipop team on here last week, and what they're doing, and a lot of other brands have sort of followed suit. Now what's interesting is the delivery mechanism. Does the product taste good? Does it fit into my life? And I think your current narrative makes a lot of sense, but I really wanted to just get some of that backstory and understand how you got here. So that's really helpful.
For sure.
So let's pivot a little bit.
It's part of the GUTZY journey.
Yeah, it's part of the Gutsy journey. So that was what I want to say now. Now, you have this name. Obviously, we're talking gut health. Tell me a little bit more about the brand, the name, what it means to be Gutsy. What there's more to it than just the fact that it's on your label.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a double meaning. The Gutsy, it's a play on word, really. It's a play on word between, we believe that in order to operate at your best, it starts with food and what you eat. And if you think about Hippocrates, who is the father of modern medicine, said all disease begins in the gut. So you got to start by fueling your body well, right? And it starts with fueling your gut, and prebiotics are awesome for that. It's research. There's more and more research coming out on it, and so but it goes beyond that, because for us it's about fueling yourself well and eating well, so you can be at your best, and you can experiment and find stuff you're passionate about and go beyond it and really go for it, right? And it's this journey of living a gutsy life that I mean, not knowingly, because you connect the dot backward, happened to me through my journey, right? Through, from a kid, I've always been a little bit different. As a French kid growing up in the south of France, I picked up basketball. And obviously I'm not tall, I'm 5'8", so wrong sport. And people told me, I was very good at basketball, and they were like, but you're too small, right? And I never gave up on it because my passion for the sport was too strong to give up, right? And I think that's the same journey with what we're trying to do with GUTZY, is trying to get involved with folks, i.e. athletes, and not just athletes, that that want to experiment and find a groove, and find what they like, and kind of go with it and not give up. We live in a society today where it's all about instant success. Everything has to be right now and this and that, and nobody is taking the time to experiment long enough to know if it's something they're gonna be good at or they're gonna love doing. We just move from one thing to the other all the time. So Gutsy is about like finding your groove and going for it, right?
Yeah, I'm glad Tom Brady stuck with football when he was selected 199 in the draft. Go blue. I wanted to talk about another Michigan athlete, Duncan Robinson, who also has a great story. And I know that you have a relationship with him. And I think players like that, athletes like that, obviously basketball is important to you. Talk to me a little bit about how that came about and some of your other relationships like US rowing, why and why those are a good fit for your brand.
So look, we're not a sport brand, right? The product was not developed for athletes in mind per se, but because of, I think, from my background, and I grew up in a sporty family. My father was a French rower, French champion actually, and so from a very young age, I was surrounded with, and I did so many different sports, right? Basketball is my main sport, but I played tennis, I cycled competitively, skied. So I dabbled into different things because that's how I grew up in the process. And for me, sport has always been a big part of my journey. And that's why, our products are all about people on the go, because sport and being active is part of a healthy lifestyle, And so it's kind of, again, connecting the dot backward through my experience with my family and where we are today, because we had athletes organically coming to the product and the brand, and it started really with the Buffalo Bills that had a great season this year, and their head of strength and conditioning finding our product at Wegmans and reaching out to us, and now we're on their fueling station. And just after that, the sport performance dietitians for the US rowing team, which was my father's sport, which is funny, as a coincidence, reach out, and now we have a partnership with the US rowing because they love our product because it's good complex carb that gives them clean energy, because there's no added sugar, there's a prebiotic, so there's a slow glycemic release, of the carbs and so on, and it's great for your gut. And when you're an athlete and you perform at a high level, you deplete your gut bacteria because you go hard, right? And you need to replenish that. And GUTZY for that is fantastic. So back again to the sport I love, basketball. About 2 or 3 months ago, I had the agent for Duncan Robinson reaching out to us because he found our product at Publix after his trainer recommended it to him, and he loves it, right? So for me, it's very exciting when I see professional athletes and sport dietitian like that, contacting us, not us going to them. I think it's super powerful because it shows the strength of the product, really,
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think that I always have said that I like the angle of going through dietitians, the people that are advising some of these athletes at the highest level on the things to fuel their body. There's obviously workouts, but also what they eat. And it's a great inroad. It sounds like some of it happened organically and some of it can happen by design. I think that's a really good tip for other brands that have a really better for you product that would fit to that lifestyle. It's a sneaky little hack to go after them as opposed to going after their agent per se, or going after the actual athlete and striking up that relationship. That being said, it has to be a good product. They have to like how it tastes. And
it's got to tick a lot of boxes.
You have to tick a lot of boxes. You can't just like force it. It's got to be real. So I love that Duncan Robinson, who also, we won't get into it today, but if you look him up, has a very gutsy story.
Well, yeah, it's part of, what we were just talking about before, about the purpose of our company. It's about that adversity and that chip on your shoulder. But when you're passionate like that, the guy started in a junior college, right? Yeah. I went to a junior college for 1 year in the US to play ball, which for me was amazing, but he started there. And, and you think about even Coach Pop from the Spurs, right? He was a junior college coach when he started initially.
Yeah. That, and they say junior college makes some of the best hustlers of all time. I think one was in the Super Bowl last night, from Last Chance U, which is a show on Netflix that my friend actually produces. But puts a chip on your shoulder. I like those kind of people. Those are the kind of people I like to bet on. And maybe just tying back to the beginning of this conversation, why some of the investors invested with you and sort of did that. I'm a big believer, and it looks like they were too. So now understanding the product, how do you distribute? What are your channel distributions? Like what's your, where do you see success? And obviously you're crazy if it's, it's February 2021. 2020 was a weird year for everybody. A lot of people are gone. A lot of people say it wasn't so bad. What's the truth for Gutsy?
So we're still standing, I would lie if I said that 2020 was a fantastic year. But it was a very important year for us because it really kind of like challenged our business in a way, because obviously we are refrigerated grab and go snack, right? So when the world shut down and nobody moves and stay home, they aren't gonna eat that many Gutzies, right? Because it's supposed to be on the go. With that being said, we ended up the year positive. We were up 10%. For a startup, it's not the numbers that we want to see, obviously, but it's still a lot better than a lot of other companies that are not even around today. So from that standpoint, it was a tough year. So we are a brick and mortar business first and foremost. We were not selling online before the pandemic because our product is refrigerated. So imagine selling a product that's refrigerated and shipping it is expensive. But we did a pivot as well, where we launched on Amazon. I think it was in September, actually, and that has really kind of shown some very positive result, because obviously our brand is distributed in about 4,000 points of distribution. We merchandise mainly in produce next to refrigerated fruit cups in the grab and go, often next to plant-based probiotic products and so on. But we are very strong in the East. I don't know, it's because we're based on the East. The West, we're starting to build, so there's still a long way to go from a distribution standpoint, and having a penetration in the US that, I think we might have a 10-point penetration from a distribution standpoint today. So we still have a long way to go. But the very encouraging stuff is that when I look at our key accounts, we're super strong with a great partner called Publix in the East. Great supermarket chain, Wegmans and Anaford as well in the East. And our business there, even during the pandemic, was extremely strong from a velocity standpoint. And, and that's what you get judged with in terms of retailers' velocity and how much you turn in each store per SKU. And our business has been very healthy per se. I think the addition of Amazon has been great because it's a way of reaching more people, and it's also a great marketing vehicle to tell our story and our journey there. So we still have a long way to go though.
Right.
From that standpoint.
Have you tried e-commerce success and it has not worked out, or have you just decided that too hard, too expensive to ship a refrigerated product? Let's really focus on retail and Amazon, which has that sort of distribution channel.
Yeah, so I think Amazon is really for us the first step in terms of learning, right? Again, we're not. Also, we have more investment now in the business, and we have a strategic, obviously, involved with us in the food industry. We are very cautious about how we move on things, and so Amazon is a first step. I see brands that are doing D2C, and they're like, oh yeah, I did 25 grand of sales last month. How much did you spend in advertising? $25,000, right? So we can do that stuff, right? That's not who we are. That's not how we operate. We operate like very, it's about building foundation and learning and adjusting and, all that stuff. So for us, Amazon actually has been a very pleasant surprise in the way it started. And we're learning tons of stuff. And as we learn, we'll invest more, and the next step will be probably to sell on our website and to build a team around that journey. Because so far, the thing with our business is you can count the team, other than you guys that I consider part of our team as well. You can count on one hand the amount of people we have working with our business right now. So, we're super lean. So we got to be we got to pick our battle. So.
No, and I teed up that question because obviously I know the back end, but I think it's a really good point. Everyone got into D2C this year. There was a flood to it, and for some brands it was a great idea, and some brands it's harder. Frozen, refrigerated. These are some of the beverages. It's not as easy or so linear. And I think you guys have been calculated, and it doesn't have to be so binary. It can be Amazon proof of concept. Will people buy it online? Will they enjoy it? Can I get more awareness around the product, so that people know it, not just maybe seeing you in Publix or Wegmans, but also potentially seeing you on Amazon, maybe at some point seeing you online. But it's not just one or the other. And I think a lot of people swing with the pendulum and the times. And I think that you're a little bit more even keeled, maybe a little bit more calculated from your past experience of not burning through cash. And lean. Yeah, like you've been lean since the day we met years back, and lean still. A lot of brands go and they hire up a lot of people and they get, all these different people inside, and it's nice, but that can really choke the horse, so to speak, from a cost perspective. So I think that it's really smart that you've been calculated that way.
And just not from a cost standpoint, it's also, I think, from a founder standpoint, you got to be super close to your business when you start. Because if you're not involved in the trenches of the operation and selling the story and also like the manufacturing, everybody wants to focus on marketing. But marketing is great, but if you got to get all the other components together and manufacturing, and during the pandemic, we didn't short one customer because our operation was extremely strong and we put a lot of attention behind it, right? So that's very important to have all those key components that that potentially at some point we'll invest a lot more in marketing. We will recruit more folks and stuff, but it's a step process, right? And I think that the pandemic, if you look at the trend with gut health, pre-pandemic, it was already kind of starting to take off. I think COVID-19 kind of accelerated it because people are now like, I need to be careful what I eat. And especially I need to eat stuff that's good for my gut and good for my immune system. So we see a trend the last 2 months of this year, like January, now we're on Feb, has been trending up a lot. And I think that, you had Olipop before and stuff, and now you have other brands that are coming in that space. A lot of brands obviously are jumping on the bench wagon of probiotics, right? We are still very focused on prebiotics because we believe that there's a lot stronger research about doing something positive to your gut, right, and to your health. And I think we're at this stage now for us where we're in discussion about, because our line of product is super simple, right? We have 6 products. And we're doing quite a few $1 million on those 6 products. We haven't gone everywhere and done all kind of format and stuff. We've learned a lot with this line, and I think we have a lot more innovation potentially moving forward. Again, we will do it step by step. And also, I think it's going to be the time now to invest more. Now is the time. I think it's going to, the pace moving forward is going to be a lot faster into that new gut health space, really. And we're going to have to, increase our means if we want to play in it on a bigger level.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think a positive benefit is that the tide is rising for all the brands in the space now. And you've been an OG in the space. And I think your average consumer now, even in like a Walmart and a Target, is going in and looking for these terms: prebiotics, probiotics. What are they? Whereas historically, that would have been like medicinal and confusing. Now it's mainstream and they're seeking it.
Yeah, it's not just done on Activia.
That's right.
That's right. It's moved on.
So. Yes. So that mass consumer, mass retail is very attractive for a brand like yours. Large refrigerated space, so bigger box stores, things like that. So that's a really positive thing. I think what I would also say is, we've been working with you for a long time. You have a real strong get it factor in the sense that you sort of stay out of our hair. You're like, look, I hired this company to do good work. Is it perfect every single second how I would want it? Maybe not, but it's 80%, 90% where I want it to be. But I need to be nimble and I need to focus on retail or investors or all these different things. And my hat's off to you. And that's just not a plug for our relationship. It's just, it allows you to move faster and allows you, a lot of brands got mired in the weird details during COVID because they were like, they didn't know where else to focus. So suddenly they were sweating every Instagram post and everything that you're thinking about reels. And it was not the right thing to focus on, but they didn't have anything else to do with their time. We didn't have any of that. You were focused on your business. You were focused on capitalizing and being smart and strategic. And I think it's paid dividends. And last, like, your get it factor is really strong. Like, even like, you know, making less of a footprint with your packaging, changing the tops of your packaging. I remember last year, Founders Give came out with that guy, Cole Riley. We sent it out to all of our clients. You were the first to respond. You were first to go and deliver products for, you know, first responders and people that are in the trenches. You built a great relationship with him. You know, he said really nice things about you the other day. He's going to be on our podcast in a couple of weeks.
He's got a new business. Huh?
Yeah, he's got his new business.
Which I'm
welfare.
hoping at some point will be involved.
I think you're going to be involved.
Yeah.
So I just think it's like not sweating the wrong stuff, focusing on the right stuff, and then having the guts or the balls or whatever term you want to use,
whatever you call it, yeah,
the gumption to go after it. And I think that takes grit. Maybe being the short basketball player in France, whatever it is, it puts that chip on your shoulder and allows you to be more successful, because being a founder and an entrepreneur is not easy.
It's tough. It's you get pounded a lot, and often from different angle at the same time, you know,
all the time.
And everybody, you know, it's a sexy word nowadays, but I think it's more about finding what you love, and then if you can make a living out of it, and that's, you know, because people talk about grit and resilience, and I don't think that people are born with no grit or resilience. You just need, you know, you need something you're gonna love, and when you find that, you know, it's just grit and resilience are just gonna pop up naturally, right? So
yeah, I mean, you have to be built to take punches in the gut, because they're going to come all the time. That's why I think some of the best founders are salespeople that have actually sold, because selling is miserable, right? It's what mostly knows.
Well, you have to learn to deal with rejections, right?
Totally. And so it really sets you up to win. I'm a huge fan of the product, and I don't say that because you pay me, though you do pay me. It's fantastic. And I actually survived on some of it. We had a bunch of product here. I was coming into the office last March and April, walking here, didn't want to touch anything, didn't go into any restaurants. And I would walk 2 miles here, 2 miles home. I would eat these. It was fantastic. We ran out of them. I needed to get another supply. But it's a really fantastic product. And I think it is something that is going to catch on, because I think the grab and go format of it, the pouch, is going to start to make a lot more sense. And I think you've been early on it. I think people are going to start to see that. And I hope that that really is a benefit to you guys, because you deserve it. So what's on the horizon for the next like 3-6 months? Anything that we should know about? Any innovation? What do you want to share?
So we look from an innovation standpoint. We've obviously been very attentive to what happened with COVID, and I think, you know, everybody is talking about immunity. We think that immunity starts in the gut, right? Because 75% of our immune system is there. There's a reason, and prebiotics are a big component of protecting your immune system, actually. So we're looking at even more functional product, maybe even more with an immunity angle that's a bit more important, with potentially looking at the role of zinc and vitamin D and other things like that. So we're dabbling into that. And also the other thing is, our product is great, but one of the weakness, if I'm honest with you, is satiation. And you know, in America, especially even with athletes and stuff, you know, Americans are obsessed with protein. It's not the same in Europe, but in America, protein is huge still. And people say, well, we're coming at the end of this. I don't think it's gonna disappear anytime soon. So we're looking at potentially, how do we keep a product that tastes great and that's good for your gut, that has plant protein in it. So there's different stuff that we are kind of looking at. Obviously, the biggest one is we need to move from a distribution standpoint. So we need more distribution moving forward. We've appointed new brokers at the end of last year that are the experts in the grab and go fresh kind of set. And I think that's going to have huge payoff moving forward for us on the east and also on the west. So I'm excited to work with these guys to expand the distribution of our product moving forward. And the other thing is, you know, we need to make a bit more noise and carry on working with athletes and kind of like, you know, I have a bigger D1-on-1 kind of show where I interview folks that have adversity and stuff, so that we're gonna keep doing. And with you guys, we started dabbling on TikTok to see what's going on there. And I think TikTok for us, because the big thing I think for me is the last few years have been such a grind that you tend to forget to have a bit of fun too, because you're so in the trenches with everything. And I think that the TikTok for us is like, at least for me, it's like, let's have a bit of fun with this, because at the end of the day, the journey needs to be fun too. And this year, a big word for me is actually being grateful and joyful in the process, and really kind of like having a smile when you do stuff, because we are very blessed, first, to be healthy, and second, to still be in business. And when you look at those things and what happened last year, I'm excited to move forward, because we have so much stuff to do moving forward with Gutsy. So
I love it. So as we wrap up, I just want to know, like, where do people find you online if they want to check you out after this?
So they can go to our website, gutzyorganic.com, because from there you can go and buy on Amazon, or you can check out the product and everything. So that's really also our hashtag is the same. So Instagram, TikTok, and even Pinterest, GUTZY is the hashtag. So they can check us out there. And reach out to our contact page as well. And we'll send you some coupons if you want to try, if you haven't tried Gutsy yet. So.
Awesome. Yeah, get involved with that. Try it out. I think you'll be a fan. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks,
This has been
Adam.
my conversation with David from Gutsy Organic. Check him out online, and that's the show. Thanks.
Thanks.